The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.
Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm TOVAH Copan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast where we celebrate women stepping into their power and living their most authentic lives. We are also thrilled to be a part of the Power Moms Network. At Power Moms Network, we are empowering moms and creating a community of mothers mentoring other moms to greatness. I got through it without stumbling, which was a first. I did have to read it still. Welcome to the show, everybody. As you all know, we are in season 12. We are talking all about writing your own story, being the author of your own future, all of those things, all the mixed metaphors you could come up with. I want to remind everyone that we have our weekly circle going on still. We would love for you to join us. It's a great place to meet like-minded women, get to have some support, get to vent, get to learn new things. We talk more in depth about the things we talk about here on the show, and more personalized, obviously, because we're there and interacting with you. So we would love for you to join us. You can find out more about it on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/weekly circle. With all of that being said, I'm going to say hello to TOVAH and get her on the show, and then we're going to dive into our next interview. So TOVAH, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm acting like I'm a guest. I'm excited to be here, Riley. Thanks for having me. It's Monday morning, and it was a fantastic weekend. But by the end of it, I'm pretty sure I was telling people on the sidelines of our 7th game of the day that I was thinking about taking off today and sitting in a dark padded room just for the comfort of leaning against a padded wall in the dark. I was done. But a good night's sleep does a lot of good.
Yes.
My initial oomph from that initial good night's sleep is sort of teetering off as the morning goes on. So you may see me sipping some coffee. I don't even remember if it's decaf or regular, but I'm sure we'll find out as the podcast goes on.
We'll see what happens with your energy.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm excited to be here. So, you're gonna
go
talk?
ahead. No, go ahead, please introduce away.
Oh, I was gonna say, and I'm really, really excited because as we were talking about who we wanted to invite to this season, and we love to invite people that we don't either know personally or things that we don't know a lot about. And I think you said, I think it'd be really great to have a sex therapist on. And I was like, I know one. And here we are. So I am so excited to have Melissa join us. Dr. Melissa Donahue is a licensed clinical social worker and a certified sex therapist and supervisor through the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. She is a national, I'm sure a natural presenter as well, but a national presenter, mentor, and strong advocate for accurate sexual education for all. Additionally, through her partnership with an OBGYN and sexual educator at the Center for Sexual Wellness in Morristown, New Jersey, she co-authored a chapter in the Art of Sex Therapy Supervision titled Supervising Referral Relationships. I'm going to include everything else in the show notes because your accolades and all of your degrees, although I will say, I know you've worked very, very hard on your degrees. So I feel like I should also share those, but I know you just received your doctorate. I'm very proud of you as a friend and someone who's watched you go to all your classes and deal with raising children while also doing this. I just want to share that you are the owner of MD Counseling LLC, and your practice is committed to supporting all individuals, regardless of religion, culture, or identification, with sexual health and wellness concerns. And we are just so excited to have you join us and to talk to you. So thank you for joining us. How are you doing on this Monday morning?
Thank you for having me. It's a great one Monday morning. I wish I was outside, not in my office. The weather is gorgeous.
Same. Same. It's nice to not be in the midst of like a downpour for a change, right? We're all located, just for our listeners, we're all located in the same state. So we've been suffering through spring monsoons, basically, it feels like anyway, for weeks on end, and it's finally nice again. So we're all enjoying it, I think. Welcome to the show. As Tova said, we like to kick it off with sort of a broad question. As you know, this season is really about writing your own story, directing your own future, all of those things. And so I want to start out with getting an understanding of how you developed this vision for your future that you're currently living. Where is it all coming from? Sort of how do you make decisions, that kind of stuff. If you could kind of walk us through that, I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, so where I landed is not where I started. I got my master's degree at Boston University, and my plan was to be a geriatric social worker. And that was my plan. And I did my internships that way in the beginning of my master's program. And when I graduated, I worked in nursing homes, I worked in home health care, and I really loved the population, but it wasn't my calling. So I said, okay, well, I need to shift. I had an internship in oncology, and I loved oncology, and that was great too. But there was still more that I wanted to do. I worked in substance abuse. I love that population too, but they were not my final population, I like to say. Across all of the populations, people ask questions about sex. In geriatrics, there were concerns about people having sex in nursing homes, and was it consensual or not if there was dementia involved, and what would it be like for my mom or my dad if they knew they were doing this? In substance abuse, you had the questions about what it's like to have sober sex. Well, we've never had it before when we're in recovery. And then in oncology, there were concerns. Are there infection risks that I have to be concerned about? Can chemotherapy pass in fluids? And all these questions keep coming up. And I'm like, well, where is the adult that knows these answers, or the professional that knows these answers? So we decided to go to a conference. It's actually a training for medical students. And it was called Sex Week through Robert Wood Johnson. And I had gone to some other sex preceptorships through Dr. Irwin Goldstein in New York. I'm sorry, Dr. Irwin Goldstein in Boston when I lived up in Massachusetts. But I went to Sex Week when I came back to New Jersey. And when I was there, I sat next to a social worker, and I started talking to her, Dr. Christine Hyde. And we were talking about, why are you here? What do you do? And she's like, I'm a sex therapist. I said, oh my God, I didn't know that thing existed. And so I shared with her my story. She's like, oh, so you're a sex therapist. You're just not certified yet. It's like, oh, that's interesting. So we sat together. She became my mentor, my supervisor, and helped me get through the certification process through ASECT. And that's how I kind of landed where I'm at. I wanted originally to bring it to my oncology practice, but my manager at the time thought that that was inappropriate, that cancer patients wouldn't want to talk about sex. And therefore I said, well, then I will start my own practice for them to come to me. And that's how I landed in my private practice.
I just want to dive a little deeper into that and understand. So you repeatedly have a sense that this is not your population. This is not your population. Can you talk to us about what that sense is like? Like, was it a feeling in your body? Was it you went home and you were like, oh, I love it, but I don't really love it. You know what I mean? Like, what was that feeling like for you?
Well, you think you're working with a certain population, or you think you have certain agency to help the certain population. It's not always as clear cut. When you're working with geriatrics, my vision was that I was going to help that population. But a lot of times what you're really doing is assisting their adult children and, managing their feelings with placement or resources. And while their children are fabulous and wonderful, I didn't want to work with adult children. I wanted to work with the patients, but there really wasn't much hands-on work for that population. It's more of the supports around them. So I felt like I was misunderstood about what I was doing. And it really didn't fit what my goals were. I really wanted to have more patient interaction. So that was one of the challenges with the geriatric population. When it came to substance abuse, part of the struggle I had was there's a lot of relapse before people get it. And sometimes people don't ever get it. And it was very hard to watch people not come back because of either incarceration or tragedy, such as overdosing or accidents. But it was great to work with them. My heart got hurt a lot working with that population on a regular basis. So I found that, though I loved being there, it just felt Like I was not going to do my best, or maybe my best was all I can do, and it just wasn't their time. So I guess I really struggled with that aspect. In oncology, I love that population, and I probably would have stayed working for a hospital system and working in oncology, but the schedule working in a hospital does not work so well for me raising my children. You are an essential employee, come snow, come rain, no matter what the weather was, and you have three small children at home, or you're nursing a baby after you have a child. There's not much flexibility if you're being paged to go see a patient who's in a crisis. Like there's very hard to get lunch breaks assigned to you. It's not like you eat lunch 12 to 1. So it became really hard to work in such a structured environment when I needed to give more back to my family. So a private practice was a better fit.
So I have a comment and I have a question, but my comment is, as someone who has her now, and I was fortunate that I didn't have to go through chemo or radiation or hormone treatment. I kind of took an extreme surgical route to avoid a lot of that. Um, but even with the surgical side of things, but especially with the chemo and radiation and hormone side of things, cancer patients talk about sex all the time. Like it is not inappropriate. It is I mean, I don't know about other cancers, but for breast cancer especially, it is a all the time conversation.
Yep.
And so that, that was an issue, but also it's interesting that you had the supervisor saying it's not appropriate. And it's like, when would it be more appropriate? But then, so I would love to talk more about this idea of sex not being considered appropriate when it is so, I mean, every chat group I'm in, it is right at the top of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And as a single person who was going through it, it was a big concern of mine. Like, I don't have a husband to just kind of like help navigate these waters with. I'm going to be out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But my other question was just from a logistical standpoint, did you become known either with the other patients as sort of like, oh, Melissa's the one to go to if you have sex questions? Which, like, did you just become known as someone that they felt comfortable, like because it sounds like you started becoming interested in these things.
It's so funny. So I developed that, I guess, that image younger than before I was a social worker, where a lot of my friends would talk to me about it. Why, I had no idea. It's not like I had all this wisdom as like a teen or a college student, but I became a confidant to a lot of people about that topic. I guess it's just like what you bring forward in your personality. But when I worked in the hospitals, I would, if I was working with multiple social workers, they would say, let me get Melissa. She's a better referral for you to talk to, even if it wasn't my department to cover. But I quickly was known to be called Melissa if you have that question. But I didn't run, in the last hospital I worked at, I didn't run the breast cancer support group, but I ran the prostate cancer support group. And I would always say to them, we need to talk about sex. And it was very interesting, they would want to, but a female running a prostate cancer support group is, I think, challenging for men. I think when men need to talk about their abilities to be sexual beings, for them it was hard, not for me. But it's something that needs to be talked about. I ran a breast cancer support group when I lived in Massachusetts, working up there. And we brought in Dr. Erwin Goldstein, who was working out of Boston at the time, who has now moved his practice to San Diego. And we did it on the month of was February, so I'm not sure where Valentine's fell, but we decided to bring chocolate covered strawberries, and someone brought sparkling cider, and we talked about sex, and it was the most well attended meeting of all of the meetings we've ever had to talk about it. I don't understand why it's taboo in any population, to be honest with you. We all do it, whether we do it by ourselves or we do it with a partner. So I don't know why sex should be considered taboo anywhere.
Let's talk about sort of how your path to be. I mean, I think you just touched on it a little bit, but like, how is your path to being a licensed social worker? Where does that stem from earlier, like even before you were in college and things? I know it sounds like we all have that friend, right? Who's the person where like, that's the person I talk to about whatever. Whether it's sex or, like family troubles or money issues, whatever it is. Where is that coming from for you? Like when you were little, where you're like, I want to help people and this is how I'm going to help people, where kind of talk to us about how you got along this path?
Well, that's a really funny story. So I was one of these unusual kids that used to watch Divorce Court for time when I would come home from school. And I always wanted to be a divorce attorney. Like I wanted to be an attorney since my whole life. That was my focus. I was going to go to law school and I was going to be an attorney. And that's what my parents kept saying. Oh, she's going to be a lawyer. She's going to be a lawyer. And then when I was in, I want to say like the end of middle school, beginning of high school, I had an aunt that got really sick and she was a single mom with 2 children. And there was questions about where the children should go, you know, who was going to take on the responsibility when she passed. There were no fathers in the picture or interest in being in the picture at all. There were a lot of aunts and uncles. Everybody had their own opinion. Some people were having homes of different religion versus the religion she was raising the children. So there was a lot of conflict on what we were going to do and who was going to pay for it. And I remember being the oldest grandchild, I think I had much more awareness than a lot of my cousins have because they were little. And because I was known to be a listener in my family. Like I always listened to what the adults were saying because I felt like they spoke freely when the kids weren't present. So I would always listen from another room. So I witnessed all these discussions. And I remember at one point they got a social worker to help them navigate the waters of, okay, who's going to adopt these children? Are they going to be together? Are they going to be separated? Why would it matter either way? Where would they live? What schools would they go to? And all of these discussions. And I kind of watched it unfold. And I thought, wow, if this one person can do all of these things to help a family move beyond like a tragic diagnosis, these 2 small children, and give them stability and set everybody up in the right way, if everybody followed the rules, that would be amazing to be able to have that ability. And that's where my shift happened sometime in high school when I watched that transformation.
Did you, as you were going through, I mean, it seems like that this has been almost, I guess, a calling for you, which is kind of interesting because we've been talking to a lot of people who have had callings, but they haven't heard it for a very long time. Now, your passion or the thing that you were needed to talk about didn't become clear until much later. Or maybe it was clear the whole time, but you didn't even know it was a thing until much later. But did you, along the way, I'm always interested in, and we're always interested in what happens like when you hit a wall or something doesn't go well. Like it does sound like you've hit a couple walls where it's like, I don't get to be the type of social worker I want to be. But like when whether it was through school or even when you were really young, when you're going down this path and like it feels like you were pretty sure that this is what you were supposed to be doing almost the whole time. But when you're hitting something, or you're up against a wall, what do you do? Like even it's hard not to doubt your calling, even if it's hard not to go like, well, I don't really like this. I'm not working with the patients like I want to be. Maybe this isn't really what I meant to be, as opposed to going, well, maybe I should just look at substance abuse versus geriatric. Like, how do you personally handle those kinds of difficulty situations?
I think you have to sit with it for a while. I mean, I there's a joke in my family that I am only in competition with myself. Like I don't like playing board games because I just do it for fun. I'm not competitive. I don't look at strategy. Just want to spend time with my family and they find it very boring that I won't be competitive. But I say I'm only in competition with myself. So whenever there's a roadblock or whenever there's a barrier, trying to figure out, okay, well, what will be the way around it? Like what is the way that, when somebody underestimates me, I'm like, all right, that will be fun. That gives me like that boost to like, let me show you. It's kind of how my doctorate came about. I was told by a lot of doctors, well, you're just a social worker. I was like, oh, really? Just a social worker? Okay, let me show you. Now I'll have a doctorate, and then you will address me as Dr. Donahue. And now I am an equal peer. Maybe I didn't go to medical school, but now we're both at the doctorate level of education. Maybe you'll take me more seriously in my experience with your patients in my office that you're not listening to. So for me, it was a way to, I always think I can find that workaround. I'm always looking for that workaround. I don't usually just say, oh, well, it's not going to happen, which probably drives my family insane because, as I finished my doctorate, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll get you're certified in yoga next, or maybe I'll get enough. Like, will you just stop? Like, and I'm like, I'm not done yet. I don't know what's next, but we're not done yet.
We need to take a quick break, but I want to talk more about that, that drive in you, the I'm not done yet, the curiosity, right, for learning. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Well, hey there, dream chaser. Are you ready to make the next 12 months of your life unforgettable? Introducing the Year of You, a groundbreaking new goal system group that's about to redefine the way we approach personal growth. Join us with a community of like-minded individuals committed to unlocking their full potential. With expert guidance, personalized strategies, kind-hearted accountability, and a supportive network, the Year of You is more than just a goal-setting group. It's a whole movement. Don't just dream about it, achieve it. Click in the link in our show notes, or go ahead and visit us at goboldlyinitiative.com/Year of You to learn more today. Let's embark on a transformative journey together towards becoming the best versions we can be. The Year of You, where your goals become reality. All right, so welcome back to the show. Before the break, you were talking about how you're not done yet, which I think is such a wonderful outlook on life, like a mindset that I wish more of us had, right? Because it just breeds curiosity and learning and understanding and empathy and all the good things. But is that like a personality trait? Is it something that your family was like, yeah, just keep going, like keep learning? Were you encouraged in that sense? And on the flip side of that, how do you encourage your kids and even your clients to be more curious about the world around them, to be more interested in like, I'm not done yet. I can try these new things. I can get certified in yoga. I can become whatever I want to become. How do you navigate all of that?
I think part of it's a personality trait. Like as I work with different people in my offices, not everybody has a drive for difference. Not everybody has a drive for change. A lot of people get stuck. And I don't know if they're stuck necessarily because of mental health issues going on currently, or it's just a personality trait. Sometimes it's kind of hard to piece that out. But I'm always looking for ways to help people along. I have a couple of people who work, untraditional jobs or hours. And I'm like, oh, well, what are you going to do with your spare time? Because you work either an overnight shift or you work, you can do something else with the way your hours fit, maybe so you could save for the house that you talk about, or you could save for the car that you want or the wedding that you're planning for. And I'm always looking for ways that not to take away from their quality of life, but to enhance their quality of life. And sometimes I have to make sure I keep that in check because sometimes I'm a little bit too aggressive with them. I'm like, well, you should be, I worked full time and got my doctorate, but not everyone should be as, to that extent as I am, but just trying to always help people better themselves. Have you thought of this? Because I don't know that everyone has that motivator in their life. I feel like my mom is that person. My mom is a go-getter from a very young age, and I still watch her do it. And she's retired now, but she hikes as much as she can. I mean, she's always like, oh, we should go for a hike. I'm like, well, I'm too busy. But every spring break from when I'm teaching, I go for a spring break hike with her, we call it, or when my semester ends, we go for a hike. But she goes hiking all the time. And then she decided, well, I could be doing my job as a consultant. I don't have to work for an organization anymore. So she does that, even in retirement. So she's always on the move. It's almost harder to spend time with her because she's more busy, in retirement than she was when she was working full time. But I think that's kind of where it comes from, watching my mom like that. And just that internal desire to be in competition. Like, okay, well, you were that yesterday. What will you be today? What can you be tomorrow? And not to a point where there's no rest or restoration, in your life, but like trying to figure out, well, how could I be more efficient? How could I take care of myself better? How can I help my patients better? It's in all different ways of being competitive.
Was your mom like that when you were growing up? Is that what you got to see her doing as a kid?
So my parents were young parents. Like my mom was 19 when she had me. So she had to hustle to support her family and take care of her kids. And so did my dad. They were both, you know, some college when they started their family. And there wasn't, I don't think they had health insurance even when I was born. I remember my mom saying like the hospital bill was like $900 to deliver you, and we were on a payment plan forever. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment. There was four of us in it, in a one-bedroom apartment. So it was watching them go from that to buying a house by the time I was 5 was like it's pretty amazing to think how much they saved up and how much they sacrificed in order to get there. And then to watch them do it again and buy a house in another community, that they felt was a better fit for who we were. So it was interesting watching that happen and not always understanding, but understanding my mom, because my mom worked for like when I was younger, she worked for Hostess Cakes, then she worked for Entenmann's. So she was delivering the cakes to all of the stores that we buy them from. And she had to get up really like early in the morning, like 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and drive to her route, which was an hour from where we lived, and then drive to her route from there, from the depot and then do the delivery and come home. So she would be going to bed really early at night. So we wouldn't see her very much during the work week. And she did that. And then she'd come home, she'd nap, we'd get home from school, and then she would spend the evening with us until she had to go to bed. So she worked really hard my whole life.
I think there's something so powerful, and I worry about this as a parent now in teaching our kids that kind of, not the like grind, because we don't want the burnout. We don't want the like misery and connected with it. But like my mom sounds very similar to your mom in that she just did what she had to do, right? And like that's what she did. And obviously I am not in the position my parents were in because they set me up for a more secure financial future. And so I worry about it with my kids, although I work pretty hard and I do a ton of stuff, but it's not, there's something about watching your parents work the night shift or watching your family, really like count pennies and struggle and like be aware that teaches you to value time and money and resources and effort in a different way. And so I wonder about that with my kids and how it's going to turn out. I mean, I talk to them about it, but it's different watching it happen. There's no question in there. I'm sorry. It's just a commentary.
But I agree with you. My kids are not growing up in the same environment that I grew up in, and I question, yes, life is easier. They have more things that they want, though of course they never think they have what they want,
Ever. Yeah.
But I think, I question sometimes, like, how do I instill what I got from watching? Because if kids are always observing, I mean, this is the same thing I say in my office to patients when they're fighting and with their spouses or not getting along. Like, your kids are sponges. They're watching you fight. And yes, fighting is not bad. Fighting is fine. There's supposed to be friction between people. You can't always agree, but it's how you treat each other, how you talk to each other, where they're going to think that's what relationships are like, whether it's good or bad. That's what they take when they start having relationships. So if my kids see me work all the time, will they think, oh, that's a good thing? Or I don't know, because it's not like they're trying to get somewhere. I think there's no endpoint for it. So I'm always curious about what happens, how they'll see the drive, but I don't know if it matters to them because it doesn't seem like it affects them. I mean, it didn't affect me when I was little. I didn't know as like a toddler that, we were eating, pasta most of the time, or like, maybe we didn't eat the way we ate when we were older, but I don't know how much it's going to affect my kids. And it upsets me. Like sometimes I wish like I could say, no, we're not going to have that. Just like, even if we could, I want to do it more.
Right.
To make them appreciate things. I think I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the way to give them that lesson with them having more of an abundance.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want to raise entitled children, right? Like you don't want to put entitled humans out in the world because it's really just gross. Like it's just gross behavior to think that the world just owes you everything and it will just show up and you don't have to work for it or do anything for it. So I think it's a struggle, but I want to circle back to sort of your day-to-day habits and like how do you keep yourself aligned with the vision you have for your future? How do you like wake up every morning, because I'm sure you have very hard conversations and there's some heartbreaking things you deal with your clients. And as you were saying before about like the substance use clients, like that's it hurt your heart. It hurts. I mean, you're a human. How could it not? Right. And so how do you every day get up and make sure you're in alignment with your path, make sure you're taking care of yourself? Like, what are your habits? Do you have practices that you do? I mean, maybe you do yoga, um, but how do you do that?
So I have a habit of going to the gym. I try to go there like 3 or 4 times a week, lifting weights, just trying to like exhaust myself, just to kind of set myself up. I play tennis, all year round outside. I play in a team in the spring, and I also do lessons in the winter, just because I want to keep moving. I want to be able to, move as long as I can. So that's part of what I do. In between patients, if I have time, I'll sit there and do squats just to get up, because I sit all day for my job.
Yeah.
If I see 8 to 10 patients a day, I'm sitting all day long. Because it's not like we walk around and we like check things out or go to meetings. Like they come in, they sit down. Like my longest walk is to my door or to my bathroom in the hallway of my building. So trying to like keep myself moving, I think, is the key. I check in with my husband and my kids during the day as much as I can. When I'm free, they're always in school, so it's sometimes hard. I try to get together with friends, but your patients, no matter what their story is or who, what their population is, they still come home with you. Like there's definitely stories that have hit my heart, whether people have had, pregnancy loss or infertility or pain with sex or domestic violence. Like all those things hurt my heart, and they still come home with me, and I'm like trying to figure out like what else can I do to make their life better? Like what am I not giving them? What else do they need? Like the patients will always come home with you. It's just a matter of like how do you discharge them temporarily so you can restore yourself, get some rest, and then start again the next day. It doesn't mean that they leave your mind, but you can't carry them always like in your bag.
How do patients find their way to you? So is it often through referrals with like therapists? I would imagine that a lot of people need to go talk to a sex therapist. A lot of us could benefit from it, but it's not something to easily self-identify. Like a lot of people can go, man, I need to really talk to a therapist. And then they go see a therapist. But how do they end up talking to you, specifically about sex?
So I get referrals from, there's some, I have several therapists in the community who I know. I make referrals to them for certain things. They make referrals to me. There's a listing Psychology Today where people find me there. Most often people are finding me through Google searches recently, since I updated my website. Through professional organizations, they find me. Some physicians refer me.
So, I
People,
should say, so
patients also refer also to me, but it's one of
okay.
those things where nobody wants to admit that they saw a sex therapist. So it's really hard. Like I'm not going to have a ton of Google reviews, not because I'm not a good therapist, but because nobody wants to put their name stamped on sex therapy. Like she was wonderful. She saved my relationship. No one's going to do that because Google reviews require you to be a real human. You can't do it anonymously.
Um, who needs to see a sex therapist? I mean, everyone, obviously. But like who specifically like should come to see you tomorrow?
So anybody that has pain during sex, if their doctor does not see it or does not warrant it, like anyone in pain for sex is not supposed to be painful, number one. If you're having trouble with arousal, if you're having trouble with orgasm, if you're having trouble with desire, physical functioning, are all good reasons. Those are more specific reasons that people come in. Difference of desire in couples. But really what brings people in the door besides the lack of sex is the lack of ability to talk about it. So I had a lot of people with communication issues where they can't talk about sex. And a lot of people have misinformation about sex. Everybody seems to think that sex is strictly intercourse. So when we have this discussion, okay, well, we need to back up here. Just because you learned the reproductive model in, your high school health class does not mean that you learned about sex. You learned how to make a baby, not learned how to have pleasure. So there's a lot of education that we have to kind of like, let's go back to the beginnings here. And it really blows people's mind when I'm like, just because you're making out on the couch, that still counts as sex. It's not discounted. because you're being sexual. And people are like, I'm like, I bet you have more sex than you think. But if you're only counting the encounters of intercourse, yeah, you might be disappointed. But all the other things that happen count too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have a 13-year-old and they had a pretty intense health class,
Mm-hmm.
but it was interesting how little information most of the kids had going into the class. Considering they're already 13 years old, they're in
Mm-hmm.
seventh grade, and there are already kids who are physically, I pray not sexually active, but they're physically active.
Mm-hmm.
So under your definition, they're sexually active,
Mm-hmm.
and the lack of information they have,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that the parents are not talking to them yet about it, and
Mm-hmm.
they're learning stuff on YouTube.
Oh,
And, he went in, my son, and he was like, I knew everything and I knew all the words. And he's like, they don't even know the real words to like the real names to things. And we had, but it's wild, the lack of information. And I don't think it gets better as they get older. There's not like, I don't know what the school system holds, but I don't know that there's a lot more like sex education after seventh and eighth grade. So it's like, okay, this is just, we're just sending people out in the world with very little information.
They do talk a little bit more about like consent in the high school and about healthy
Okay.
relationships, which I appreciate now because
mm-hmm.
I think there's been a lot of teenagers that get caught in really abusive relationships that it's very hard to see, and helping people navigate what is healthy and what is unhealthy and what is considered abusive and not abusive, I think is helpful. But you're right, it's completely strictly from a reproductive model. There's no discussion of pleasure. I mean, yes, a man has an orgasm because that's how you make a baby, but they don't talk about women's pleasure. They don't talk about, you know, what are we looking for here? Are we just looking to have, to have a release, or are we looking to have a connection? And how do we build a connection? How do we, initiate a connection with people, whether it's physical or emotional? I think there's a lot that's left that's not discussed.
Yeah, there's like most of it. I feel like it's not discussed. As you're saying, it's very much like don't make babies and don't get diseases. Like that seems to be the extent of what they're teaching. We need to take another quick break, so we're going to do that. And when we come back, I want to sort of talk about what comes next for you and what your plans are for the future, other than becoming a yoga teacher, which I think Tova might actually do too. And my mom
Yeah.
is one. So like I think about it all the time. So maybe we'll all have next steps. So we'll be right back after this break, everyone.
Hey, pod friends, it's us again. Looking for a place to collaborate, an opportunity to share your knowledge? Have you been working so hard on a podcast, book, course, product, or retreat? Do you have insights that could light up our podcast? Well, we want to hear from you. We would love to support you in all that you are and do. Join us at Go Boldly Initiative, where we celebrate diverse perspectives and share the wisdom of our incredible community. Whether you're an expert, a hobbyist, or simply love learning, we invite you to reach out with your ideas. Visit our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/podcast guests to pitch the show, or shoot us an email at hello@goboldlyinitiative.com to talk all things collaboration, advertising, and affiliation opportunities. Become part of our growing family. Let's make learning an adventure together.
Okay, welcome back to the show. So before the break, I wanted to sort of get a sense of like, where are you going from here? If you looked out next year, 5 years, 10 years, like what, if you could, manifest whatever you wanted, what would that look like for you?
So right now I'm in the process of getting certified for EMDR. I did all the training. I'm doing the supervision now. So the goal is by the end of the year, the certification will be complete. I'm on track for that. I'm also in the process of getting Gottman trained, level 1 and 2. So I'm working on that. That's my project for the next few weeks as well. I have a few other CEU things in my inbox that I'm trying to plow through before the fall starts. So I'm an adjunct professor. So I look at, January and then June, July and August as like my free time to do things that I want to do. So a lot of that is trying to cram as much in for before the semester starts again at the end of August. But that's pretty much from an educational standpoint. I love to get my research published for my doctorate. I'm still working on that. It's, I've been told you have to get a lot of doors slammed in your face and a lot of rejection letters before you find the journal that is yours. Just have to be persistent. So I'm still working on that. Aside from that, I don't really know. I mean, my kids are getting older. I want to enjoy them as much as possible before they take their, next chapter in life. So I would love to be able to, reconfigure my schedule again. It's something I'm constantly doing with my semester teaching and my children's schooling and stuff like that. Like, okay, I'm not working Mondays. Okay, now I'm working Fridays. I'm taking off Thursdays. So I think just kind of reconfiguring everything so there's more balance, I think is the key going forward. I don't know about the yoga thing. I mean, the one teacher I really want to teach it, she said she's not doing a teacher training. I'm like, oh, come on, please. I don't know if that will ever come about. It's a topic that I was told that let it die at this point. But yeah, I mean, we're required for my license to constantly do CEU. So that's always something I'm always looking at what's next. What could I use to enhance? Like one of the things that's also in my training plan is like ADHD. I mean, it's a big part of relationships now. All these adults are finding out, oh my gosh, I have this because their child is getting diagnosed and how that impacts their marriage. So, I mean, I know a lot about it. I've done a lot of reading, but to find out more through like a exact training or a little bit more precise training is kind of what my goal is as well. Because there's always things I have to be able to navigate with the couples that are coming in here. Like, why are they having this trouble? What is going on? And it's not always just communication. Sometimes you have someone who has a diagnosis of ADHD that is not completely diagnosed, but not aware of yet. And then there's someone who doesn't have it. And how do you have those two brains talk to one another so they can listen is very challenging.
It's very challenging. I'm just putting that out there. It's a wild, wild experience to go through.
It's almost like two different species in some ways. Like we don't
speak the same language. And so learning each other once we understood that's what was happening is, I don't know. I don't have appropriate words for it. It's hard. It's very hard. A worthwhile endeavor, but very hard. So I encourage that. Please get that certification. I think people need it. That's to the extent that you needed that affirmation. People really, really do need help navigating that, because once you understand that it's like two brains that don't really, they're just functioning. It's like a Mac and a PC, right? To be like nerd out over it. Like you just don't work on the same platform. And it's confusing. So, I had a question and now I lost it because I got excited about what you were saying.
You're like, please, let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, I was like, can we do a whole other episode on that? I have a lot of thoughts.
Yes.
Well, I guess one of my questions, I just wanted a little bit more about what classes you're teaching. I'm like concerned for the state, and part of it is we have a good friend who's actually part of our women's circle, and she spends a lot of time dealing with disciplinary actions at colleges. And a lot of that has to do with the fallout of a lack of education when it comes to consent and honestly what sex is, to be perfectly honest. And the fact that people are being educated online as to like what sex is, what should be expected during sex. I'm not going to ruin any of her stories like in an inappropriate, unethical way because I'm going to tell it so badly. But like situations where, it's a first time for both partners and it is kind of an aggressive form of sex and both of them feel like they've been taken advantage of, but their only experience is what they've seen on video or whatever, like YouTube. And so they thought that's how sex should be because that's all they knew, but they both felt almost like there was a violence perpetrated against them and that they both felt like the victim. And in a way they both were. But they also, there was not really a perpetrator, like, or they both were the perpetrator. I don't know. But so this is a big problem because once again, apparently I'm the only one in my kids' school group that like talks to their kids about these things. And I'm sure I'm not. I'm sure other parents do. But I hope other parents do. But I guess my question to you is like, what are the classes that you're teaching, or what do you wish the classes were that you could teach to future social workers? What are the books that if you walked into a bookstore that you wish you saw some of the titles? I don't want to give away your secret, your future books that you're going to publish, but like, what do you wish some of those books might be that would help people bring these questions? It is wild that right now these things are still taboo. And unfortunately, I think that we are actually in the wrong
Yeah, we're
trajectory.
swinging the wrong way.
Yeah, we're swinging backwards, that these things are getting more taboo, not less taboo. So like, what do you wish we were talking about?
Well, I don't teach any sex classes at the university, unfortunately.
Okay.
So as an adjunct, I am assigned classes. I don't necessarily get to like bring my agenda forward. But I'm teaching Intro to Social Work, which is an elective class for a lot of people until they probably reject, don't like the fact that I make them do so much work in their intro class. But we had a lot of executive orders to talk about related to social work, which made my content very rich this semester as so that was and then I teach helping and engagement skills, which is to me like a pre-MSW class where you're learning about how to start an individual therapy session or a group therapy group, and we learn about all of those skills. So those are the two classes that I'm teaching this fall. I taught both of them in the spring, and they were fun. But we don't really get to, I mean, I use a lot of my cases without identifying information to help people understand what we're learning about. I mean, I've had patients for so many years, so there's so much information I could pull in, whatever we're talking about. But I wish we were talking more about sex and what it is beyond the physical act. I mean, I think everybody thinks, porn is what sex is. And I say porn is just like, it's like watching Marvel. Marvel is not real. None of the Marvel characters are running around the streets of New Jersey and New York doing, crime fighting. And that's why it's just as fake as porn is. Porn is, naked Marvel. So trying to help people understand that's just entertainment, that's not reality, and that everyone does sex differently, and everyone's bodies look differently, and everyone smells differently, and everything is not the same. I think there's lots of curiosity about what sex should look like, so people want to peek, and because they want to make sure that they're doing it right and they're not doing it wrong. And I totally respect the curiosity. I mean, everybody wants to see, well, do my boobs look like that? Does my butt look like that? Because you can only see things with wrappers on it. So there's a curiosity in a locker room or curiosity in wherever you are. Does my body look like that body? Does my body behave like that body? I think it needs to be spoken more about. It's not, you're not a dirty person because you want to know if your body looks normal, whatever normal is supposed to look like. But when you're growing up, if you grow up in a home of one gender, perhaps, and you don't know what the other gender looks like naked, how are you supposed to know you're growing appropriately if no one's talking to you about it?
What do you think is the biggest hurdle for people to get through? I mean, other than like we're talking about that sort of like people still think it's inappropriate to talk about sex. What is the biggest hurdle that you would like to see kind of taken away? What, like, for parents to talk to kids, for adults to be open about this stuff? How do we help people get past that sort of, I don't know, puritanical roots that we have here in this country?
I think if we start naming body parts, when we start naming arms and legs, like everything, genitalia, we start there. So if we take the shame out of the language when we're learning language, it already takes away that heaviness. Because if somebody has an itch in a place or a scratch or pain, you don't want them using some type of slang word with the doctor. The doctor's not going to know what that means if only you use it in your home. But if you can say, just like if you scrape your elbow, you don't say my bendy thing has a cut. I mean, what bendy thing, right?
But I mean, if you're in perimenopause, you might because you've forgotten the word, but
exactly. But for kids,
not with your kids.
Right, but for your kids, they need to be able to know that. They need to be able to know the right genitalia. And nobody can see their vagina unless they have medical equipment because the vagina is on the inside. Like your vulva is on the outside. And people still don't use that word vulva, which is what they should be using. So I think, part of what we need to start addressing and increase is opening the communication has to start when they're little. These are the words. And then you have to start talking about how babies are made, but you do it in like morsels. It's not like you sit down and you go through the whole piece before they go to middle school. The first thing your child's going to see somebody pregnant at some point, or they have a baby. Where do babies come from? Okay, they come from an egg and a sperm. Okay. And then you let that marinate. And then the question is, oh, who has the egg, who has the sperm? And then you talk about that. And then you talk about how they come together. And then you talk about, well, how do they come together and then land in a body to grow and develop? Like, it's all small pieces when the child is ready, using the catchphrase of, well, what do you know? How do you understand it? So they may already have this information, and that way you're just advising and we're taking it to the next step. I mean, I think that's kind of where, if you have that open communication dialogue, by the time they get to middle school and things get really awkward and strange for them, they know that you're someone that can talk about hard things, and they can come to you with hard things. Where there's a lot of hard things in middle school right now, not just sex, violence and guns and inappropriateness and, I mean, there's so much stuff going on. And if you could talk about sex with them, you could talk about anything, and they feel safe coming to you, and you're a safe person. They need a safe person.
Yeah, I will say that my experience, and I think TOVAH, your experience as well, is exactly that, right? Like, I've talked to my kids about anything and everything since they could talk. And now my daughter tells me anything and everything. She's 12 and in middle school. And the things she tells me that happen at school are unbelievable. And like, if parents are not talking to their kids, it's just not going to go well for those kids. Because the things that they're doing in the bathrooms, the things that they're doing on the walk home from school, the words they're using, the way they're talking about people, it's shocking and awful and just very harmful. I mean, not all day, every day. I don't mean to be dramatic about it, but like, also when she comes home and tells me some of the stuff, I'm like, I don't even have words because it's so bizarre. And like you said, TOVAH, a lot of it comes from YouTube and like weird dude bros teaching 10-year-olds how to be another dude bro. And it's not great. It's not good for society. I don't have a question again, just ranting.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think the big thing, and I know we have to wrap up but now we could talk about this forever. But the big thing is like hearing it without judgment. Yesterday, my son, he saw something on YouTube. He knew the joke was inappropriate. And he's like, I want to tell you this joke. I know it's inappropriate. He didn't know why it was inappropriate. He just knew. He told it to me. It was horrifying. It was horrifying. And I just stayed. I didn't move. And I was just like, this is why that's inappropriate. And he was like, oh my God. I will never say that again. I'm so like but had I reacted, I don't know what he would have been like, I can never come to her. She's always over the top. I mean, I think he would have still recognized that the joke was awful, but he might not have felt comfortable in the future to come to me with something because I was like being, hysterical as women tend to be. But but he, he immediately was like, he just didn't understand the joke. He just didn't get it. But yeah, it's a good time out there. I do have, and we'll include some of these books. And I'm sure if you have any, anything that you recommend, I know my kids always know if I don't know something. My son asked me about puberty when he was 8 or 9. And I was like, I don't know. I think you start smelling and get some hair in weird places. He's like, Mom, I think you need to get some books. Because they just know, like, I'll look it up. I'll read a book if I don't know about it. And so I have some great books that we have enjoyed over the years. So we'll share those in the show notes. And if you have any, we'll also include those. But I know we need to be respectful of your time. Do we want to hop to the quick response questions?
Yeah. We didn't get to my questions about like midlife and later in life sex. So we may have to have you back because there's so many questions. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask you 5 quick response questions, and you're going to just answer whatever comes into your head. And I am not allowed to ask follow-up questions. So that's very hard for me. Here we go. Question 1. What is your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Put my pajamas on.
Totally. Number 2, what's one thing on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Go to Costa Rica.
Number 3, what's your go-to comfort food?
Ice cream.
Number 4, if you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Speak a foreign language.
And number 5, can you describe yourself in 3 words?
Helpful, reliable, good listener.
I have so many more questions for you. I am so glad you came on the show. I think it's so important that we stop being afraid of hard conversations. They're, they might be hard, but they're not going to kill you. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Can you let people know where they can find you if they want to, if they're local and they want to reach out, or if they want to follow you on social media, whatever it is? Can you share that with our listeners?
So my Instagram handle is MD Counseling. I have a website, www.md-counseling.com. I'm licensed in New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Massachusetts, Florida, and Missouri. So yes, people moved in the pandemic and they asked me to come with them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, and New Jersey just signed into the Social Work Compact. So we'll see what that means for more states to open up. But anybody in those states, I can help them with either in my office if they're local or via Zoom for therapy.
Fantastic. It's been great having you. We really appreciate it. And TOVAH, unless you have anything else, I will wrap us up.
No.
All right. So we'll be back next week with another fascinating conversation for season 12, where we're talking all about writing your own story and being in charge of your future. Until then, everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.
The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.